Questions at these topics are always incredibly important. And in the questions, I see a lot of people, who are reaching out, who are trying to figure things out. Because it hurts when the relationship is on the rocks. It hurts when you feel like you're trying, and the marriage is not improving. One of the first questions that we got, and I'll answer a question and then I'll give Sheikh Kifah questions as well. One of the first questions that came in this pile is, how can I or my spouse learn to forgive each other for our past mistakes when we have hurt one another? This question is an incredibly deep one, because knowing that you have hurt your partner, acknowledging that you have hurt your spouse, that's step one. Being able to say, I messed up. 3 words, so powerful. I messed up. I hurt you. That acknowledgement is even more important in the marriage than saying I'm sorry. Why? Because I'm sorry is often followed by, I'm sorry you feel that way. I'm sorry you think I'm being mean. I'm sorry. When we say I'm sorry in that way, we're deflecting responsibility. But when we take on that ownership, I hurt you. Yes, I was emailing that other person that I shouldn't have been emailing. I was texting, I was reaching out. I hurt you. Yes, I stood silently when my parents, were horrendous to you. I hurt you by not spending time with you. Acknowledge the hurt. Recognize that you hurt someone. And when your spouse acknowledges that they hurt you, be able to surpass your own ego and respond with, yes, it hurt. This is what I need to recover. Communicate in a way where you're not just closing down, shutting down and saying, yes, you hurt me, that's it, it's over. Yes, you are hurt, and your spouse is acknowledging and recognizing that they caused that hurt. Now take that next step and say, this is what I need. And if what you need in response to that hurt is, I need space, I need time, I need to be able to step away for a little bit. I need to talk about it. I need to ask you questions. Who was she? How long did you talk to her for? I need to understand, why did your parents say this? What were you thinking? Have that conversation with your spouse where they can articulate what they need in response to your hurt. That's step 2. And step 3, recognize that Allah Azza wa Jal, He is Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. He accepts our tawbah. He forgives. Who are we to not forgive them? Who are we to say, I can't forgive them? Forgive your spouse. Forgive them for the sake of Allah. But that forgiveness doesn't mean that you have to stay in a relationship where the pain and the hurt supersedes anything else. That forgiveness doesn't mean that you have to remain in a situation where you know you've been hurt and you fear that the hurt may come back and happen over and over again. Forgiveness may simply be a recognition that this person did mess up. This person did hurt you. Forgiveness may simply mean being able to say, this is what I need to recover. And forgiveness may mean being able to let go. Whether it's by staying in the relationship and moving forward, working through it with a counselor or an imam like Sheikh Kifah, who has years of experience. Or forgiveness may just mean being able to turn to Allah Azza wa Jal and give your problems over to Him. But forgiveness is one of the most important elements and keys of maintaining that relationship, because you will mess up. We all mess up. This is the nature of the insan, that nisyan. We forget and we mess up. But when somebody messes up, somehow we often don't forget that. Forgive because it is very freeing. And forgive in that 3-step process. Accept the responsibility, articulate what you need, and then act accordingly.
What if your spouse doesn't want to go to a marriage counselor, but you want to? What are some signs that divorce needs to take place? You cannot change the other person, you can only change yourself. Bottom line. If the other person doesn't want to be involved in any of self-improvement on himself or herself, then you are within two options. You either try to process things within yourself, and then you decide when it is time that this marriage is gonna go nowhere. What are the signs? If failure on responsibilities, that's one thing. If there's abuse, there's another thing. If there is no life at all, it means that people are just living under one roof and there is no intimacy, there's no caring for each other, because that's just an open door for haram to happen. For the divorce part, I now practice a point of view that many other imams do not agree with me on. I do not consider the verbal divorce as divorce. When you get married, you send your mom, you go online, whatever, and you try to find someone. Then you go do a tulba. Then you go a khutbah. Then you do a kitab. Then in the kitab you bring the father and two witnesses and you agree on money. And then you do the wedding, al-ishhar. So all this to get married, am I gonna break the family by one word? No. And I have fiqh argument for whoever wants to talk to me later on. The hadith that the Prophet said, ثَلَاثٌ جَدُّهُنَّ جَدٌّ وَهَزْلُهُنَّ جَدٌّ, that you just say أَنْتِ طَالِقْ and that's it. That's hadith, ضعيف. And in the surah where Allah spoke about the marriage of the Prophet ﷺ from Zainab, what did he say about her past husband? فَلَمَّا قَضَى زَيْدٌ مِّنْهَا وَطَرًا زَوَّجْنَاكَهَا. So when there was no feelings of Zayd at all toward his wife, that's when she was ready to be married by the Prophet ﷺ. Which means as long as what's in the heart is still that he wants this marriage, but his tongue failed him in a moment of anger or lakada, then anyone who wants to divorce, we have to bring him and say, okay, you need to take a decision. Divorce is a decision. It's a process. It's not just, أنت طالق وخلاص, get out from the house. So with this matter, there are signs that failure of responsibility, abuse, total, emptiness in the relationship could be things that you can consider. The hadith, إِنَّ أَبْغَضَ الْحَلَالِ إِلَى اللَّهِ الطَّلَاقِ, also there is some people spoke about its, authenticity, but at the end, no one wants divorce. I remember one sheikh once on one of these satellite things, he said, I divorced my wife while I was angry. He said, do you see people divorcing their wives when they are eating bizr? It is a decision. You have to make a decision in that matter, and in that particular area, when you are talking about devastating a family, the kids are paying the price on that, then we have to be more relative. بعدين أنا هلا كل الطلاق على التكست ما بيحسبوا طلاق. Seriously, people text crazy. الناس بتصير بطل تفكر. People just texting without really processing. They just want to vent out. And words, although liable, but I have my own reservations on the liability of such exchanges in text and matters like that. It's different than a written document. It's different than sitting and verbally, like in front of a sheikh or a judge and making a decision. So these things have to be updated in the fiqh application, especially for minorities like us living in the West. Wallahu alam.
The question that I have next here says, how do you address a lack of motivation in working towards bettering the marriage, especially after children and the stress of raising them and getting consumed with work and life, essentially? So, when we get a couple that comes into one of our counseling centers and they're fighting, they're angry, their blood is boiling, they're shouting at each other, we actually have a lot of hope for that couple. Because what's fueling that anger and what's fueling that sense of, it's difficult for them to connect with each other, it's that they care. It's that each person still has something within them that cares about that person, that motivates them to even get into that fight. When we have couples that have flatlined, couples that come into our centers, and there's just nothing. There's no desire to fight anymore. There's no desire to discuss things. There's one person that's stewing and boiling and like, no, we have to make this better. And the other person is kind of like, it's fine. It's fine. Khalas, we have kids together and, we have a house together and, khalas, what's the big deal? That's when we worry a little bit more. Because that flat line is often what we see in many couples, many of the older generation, past, having been married for 30, 40, even 50 years. And what we see is this increase in empty nesting, this sense of being together just because you've always been together, but there's nothing left. The kids are grown and out of the house, there's nothing really tying you with each other anymore. So when there's a lack of motivation between husband and wife on working in the marriage, the first question we have to ask is why? Where did the motivation go? What happened? Has there been a loss of connection between the husband and wife in terms of shared interests? Is there nothing that sustains them anymore in good times and in bad times? And this is why it's flatlined. Find out why. Why is your spouse not motivated? What is your spouse's response? Is it, well, things are fine. Why are you causing problems? We're okay. But you're sleeping in two separate rooms, or you enter the bedroom and each of you turns your back to the other person. You're texting each other, did you pick up the kids? Take out the trash, don't forget the milk, and nothing else. You're finding yourself suddenly attracted to Jim at work, or to Monica, at the store. Is this what's happening? And if so, then what is happening? Why is within the relationship that motivation, it's fizzled because of something? We have to find what that something is. So how do you do it? Again, I'm like a broken record this whole weekend, the same mantra. Go to counseling. And just like I got many questions, well, what if my husband doesn't want to go to counseling? You go to counseling. We're so wrapped up in, I can't fix my marriage unless it's me and my husband or me and my wife that go together. No, start with you. That's where it begins. You go to counseling. Find out what's going on within you. What are you feeling about this marriage? Let your counselor guide where it goes. We have had so many couples who come in first. Most often it's the wife. The wife makes the appointment. The wife comes in. My marriage is on the rocks. It's falling apart. I don't know what to do. My husband will come in for counseling. We get the number of the husband. We call the husband. We say, your wife is here because emotionally she's struggling. She's trying to keep up. It's a lot for her. She's not in a good place. We want to help your wife, but we can't do that without you coming and joining us so we can understand what's going on with your wife. Oh, how the husbands love that. See, the problem's with you. You're the one that needs counseling. It's not me. Oh, they come. They come because they are so excited to tell us what's wrong with their wife. And we get them in that door. And subhanAllah, it never fails. We wind up getting the husband making the next appointment and the next appointment and the next appointment. Why? Because we're not used to encouraging our men to open up and understand their feelings. We're not used to raising our boys in the way that we raise our girls to understand compassion and empathy and their own emotions. So go to counseling. If your spouse is not motivated to fix things, start with you. And have that sense of tawakkul. Just like the Sheikh said, we must change ourselves if we want our circumstances to change.
So I have a number of questions with fast answers, so we'll entertain. I'm just going to answer them all. Just having rahmah, where do I set the boundaries? When do I know I am not being passive? Whenever your rights are not being respected, there is abuse, there is failure on the responsibilities in the marriage, then it's not about being nice, it's about you need a man to take responsibility as a husband and as a father. Or you need a woman to take responsibility as a wife and as a mother. If people fail on these basics, that will maintain the marriage. And it's, لأنه أنت you need to look at things. How much are you getting from this relationship? If it's at 60%, that's, a passing grade. If it's at 10%, yeah, that's pretty low, you are failure, so probably you need to revisit your decision. How to deal with my husband's ego or selfishness? He has to deal with it. To change it, You're not going to be able to change that in him. You are either to practice, sabr and cope and have someone else, because you have to understand, when two people are at a conflict, none of them will listen to the other as if he is the trusted source of advice. You need a third party to be the person that so that matter has to be discussed on a spiritual level with the imam or the sheikh. My relationship with my wife has came to a complete misunderstanding and I cannot continue. We both don't want divorce. Can I marry another woman? I'm not sure if you can do that in Utah, but in Islam, taking another wife is not a farida, is not an obligation, it's mubah. And when you live in a country that it's illegal, then you cannot take another wife. My answer will be for you. We do not do other marriages in the masjid. We even don't do marriages without marriage license from the court. This is the policy we apply. Hubbi work, or this is hubby. Hubbi wallah bikul wahid. Hubby works 10 hours a day and I'm home all day taking care of our son. When he comes here or when he comes home, I want some help from him for house, baby, and he is already tired from his day. He's already tired. You're saying he is tired, so you're acknowledging that. That's a good thing. How do we make the process work for us? I don't know. Go help him at work. Let him take care of the kid. Can you please tell us about financial responsibilities for a family? This is a lot of things come with financial issues. Your husband is supposed, كلمة الأهل في القرآن means the wife. The term الأهل في القرآن means only the wife. It doesn't even mean kids. Kids are self. يا أيها الذين آمنوا قوا أنفسكم وأهليكم قالوا الولد من النفس. Children are you, they're not someone else. Parents, that's بر الوالدين, but the term أهل is the husband or the wife. So the husband is supposed to provide sustenance for the family in a honorable way. After that that's his first liability. The second comes the parents and ever. If he maintained good financial support for his family and he wants to help his parents, his siblings, that's fine, but not ala hisab, on behalf of losing responsibility toward his wife. The last question I have here in fast. My husband says I cannot take off my hijab in front of my son-in-law. Son-in-law mean اللي متزوج بنتك صح? Okay, this is حرمة مؤبدة. Whoever marries your daughter, he is haram on you forever. So yes, you can take off your hijab, Islamically. Now, go talk to your husband, I don't know what culture he feels comfortable with, but Islamically answering, yes, you can, but what is allowed is from the neck up, from the shoulder down, and from the knees down, that's what's allowed.
So I see that it's 4:30 and we got the time card that we have to wrap this session up. So I think, there's still a lot of questions and that always happens in these talks. These questions are important and each and every one needs its time and its space to be answered. So take that time, reach out. We have cards here for our organization, Cornerstone. You can always reach out in that way. You can visit Sheikh Kifah in his masjid. I'm sure he'd love that, inshallah. May Allah grant us all blessed marriages, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.